No worries. All right. So, as all of you know, my name is Melissa Landolt. I am an MSW intern, and this is my training on Yoga Nidra, a somatic tool for grief and trauma. This is based on the research I found that's been done. And for all light trainings, we acknowledge that our training platform operates on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples. We also acknowledge the ancestral and unceded lands of all locations where our students are located. We honor their enduring relationship with this land and recognize their resilience and contributions to somatic healing. As we connect, we commit to listening, learning, and collaborating with Indigenous communities to foster healing and reconciliation. All of our trainings are dedicated to creating a safe and inclusive environment for all individuals seeking to expand their areas of expertise and gain more knowledge in somatic work. We welcome participants of all backgrounds, cultures, identities, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, and socioeconomic status. We believe that healing is a collective journey, and we strive to honor diverse perspectives and experiences in our somatic healing practices. We are committed to ensuring that everyone feels seen and heard and valued as they engage in these sessions. Okay, so for our Yoga Nidra training for grief and trauma integration, this training introduces Yoga Nidra as a trauma-informed, somatic-based practice that supports individuals experiencing grief and trauma. Participants will explore in the historical foundations of Yoga Nidra, its modern clinical adaptations, and its relevance to social work practice, particularly in grief-informed and trauma-responsive settings. Okay, so why somatic approaches matter in grief work? So, grief is an embodied experience and it impacts emotional, cognitive, and psychological systems. Hold on, my face is covering this. Okay, sorry. It can cause sleep disturbances, hyperarousal, or shut down emotional flooding or numbness. And trauma frequently co-occurs with grief and can cause dysregulation of the nervous system. Traditional talk-based interventions may not fully address nervous system dysregulation. Somatic approaches support regulation without requiring narrative or disclosure. The impact of unintegrated grief from a research context. So, unintegrated grief poses an increased risk for prolonged grief, post-traumatic stress disorder, moderate to severe depression years later. Traumatic losses can increase symptom severity and comorbidity. So, in my research findings, I found that approximately 20% of bereaved individuals experience prolonged grief disorder. Um, PTSD prevalence following traumatic loss can range from 30 to 35%, and there was a high comorbidity between PTSD, prolonged grief, and depression. And that is where I believe Yoga Nidra comes in as a great somatic tool. So, what is Yoga Nidra? Yoga Nidra is a guided relaxation practice that facilitates a state between waking and sleeping while maintaining conscious awareness. You're not actually sleeping, even though it's sometimes referred to as yogic sleep. You're in a state of conscious rest, but not unconscious sleep. It's typically done lying down in a supported position. It encourages deep rest while the practitioner is maintaining awareness. It works directly with your nervous system and it emphasizes rest and safety when done through a trauma-informed lens. Okay, the history of Yoga Nidra. In ancient yogic philosophy, Yoga Nidra refers to a mythological state that occurs when Lord Vishnu, an Indian god that represents cohesion in the universe, sleeps during the time of creation. This period of non-activity is referred to pralaya. Today, Yoga Nidra is considered the yoga of sleep and is derived from ancient yogic practices that were designed to create a sense of wholeness and balance. In the late 1960s, neuroscientists collaborated with Saraswati to introduce Yoga Nidra to the West. And by the late 1970s and early 1980s, scientists and medical professionals were seeing positive results in MRIs for patients who had traumatic backgrounds. So it's just important to acknowledge that Yoga Nidra originates in India as a spiritual tradition, and it has been adapted in Western culture for different purposes. So, in a traditional yoga setup, this is for educational understanding only. Um, Practitioners would lie in Shavasana, which is a supine position. A teacher would guide awareness verbally. It would require a quiet, dimly lit environment with minimal physical movement, meaning the cuer would encourage people not to move at all during the session. And this would go through a structured progression of attention. Um, Modern trauma-informed adaptations modify these elements to prioritize safety, choice, and accessibility. And I think that's something very important to note. Um, in the 20th century, Yoga Nidra was systemized and later adapted to Western psychology and medicine. And the Western adaptations focus on stress reduction, trauma recovery, PTSD support, medical and oncology care. These adaptations that have been made to more modern practices prioritize safety, regulation, and accessibility. Okay, so the core components of a trauma-informed Yoga Nidra session. So Yoga Nidra, and these are things to consider, may not be safe for everyone, especially individuals who have severe dissociation, have unstable trauma responses. So best practices in these cases would be to emphasize choice and autonomy, always offering opt-out options, avoiding direct or emotionally charged imagery. A trauma-informed yoga nidra practice follows a predictable structure to support safety and nervous system regulation. You would start with safety cues. So to begin, you would establish comfort and choice, reminding participants that they can adjust, they can keep their eyes open, they can opt out at any time. Safety and agencies are a top priority, and this is much different than the original uh, layout of Yoga Nidra. And then you would work through body awareness, a body scan. Your attention moves gradually through your body. This helps to anchor awareness in the present moment and present sensations that you're having. This helps to reduce mental overactivity. And then you would move into breath awareness, where participants observe their natural breath without changing it. This allows the nervous system to settle organically. And then you can move through sensory or imagery awareness. This would be introducing neutral imagery or sensory, always focusing on non-triggering images. And then you would move through your witness of consciousness. This stage cultivates the observer's perspective, where the observer would start noticing thoughts or emotions without judgment or attachment to them. And then you would come to a gentle reorientation of your body. You would slowly guide the participants back to the room, following grounding cues. This is very gentle and supported. Whoops. Sorry about that. Um, so why Yoga Nidra works? The research that has suggested that Yoga Nidra works for clients who are experiencing grief and PTSD. Yoga Nidra works by directly influencing the central nervous system, helping the body shift out of stress responses and into deep relaxation. So the central nervous system governs both the voluntary and involuntary processes, meaning that yoga nidra impacts not only your conscious thought, but also your subconscious patterns that are stored within your body. So this leans itself to say that grief is an embodied experience. So yoga nidra is able to reach your subconscious patterns, which could potentially help moving through grief. So, through a tantric framework of your five koshas, we systematically guide awareness through your layers of being, meaning you move through your physical body inward to your energetic or your spiritual body, and then you move through layers of awareness, which allows for profound regulation and restoration. So, the parasympathetic nervous system, as most of us know, is responsible for our rest and digest function. It is designed to come online when your stress levels are low and the body is safe to heal and process. And the um, sympathetic nervous system, the SNS, is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze, and it helps us to survive by keeping us alert, and it's active when the parasympathetic nervous system is inactive. And we aren't, and even when we aren't necessarily experiencing a threat. So, the SNS stress response can often occur even when it's just acute stress. So, practicing asana or a physical yoga practice helps to tone your sympathetic nervous system by bringing you fully into your body in the present moment and by encouraging mindfulness. And Yoga Nidra offers the counterpart to an asana or a movement-based yoga practice that includes a sense of withdrawal, which is really important for trauma survivors. This gives your nervous system an opportunity to rest after a movement-based practice, an asana practice, encouraging the production of delta and theta brainwaves that promotes cellular healing. And it influences your dopamine pathways, reduces cortisol, engages both subconscious and conscious processing without the need to talk about grief and trauma. That's why it is so effective. So your progression of awareness. So yoga nidra is not just relaxation. It is a systematic process of integration to help integrate grief and trauma by combining your physical awareness, your breath regulation, um, sensory withdrawal, and focused attention. You're able to move from a surface level thinking into deeper states of consciousness without talking, which is what makes it great for some people. As your awareness shifts from your projected analytical mind into your body and then your energetic layers, communication begins to occur at the cellular level. So this ultimately guides practitioners towards a union of pure consciousness, which is the essence of yoga. So, Yoga Nidra offers the potential for withdrawal from your thinking. It allows your nervous system an opportunity to reset, which is important to note because you are helping to reset the nervous system. It is not a good idea for someone to practice yoga nidra at night before they're going to bed because you're resetting the nervous system. People often say they cannot sleep after doing a yoga nidra practice, so this is best done in the morning or earlier afternoon. Um, so something to note is yoga nidra does, as you're cueing, it goes through your five koshas, your physical body, your energetic breath body, your emotional body, your intellectual or psychic body, and then your bliss and spiritual body. And that's just something important to note for the energetics. Um, why Yoga Nidra supports grief integration. So research has shown that Yoga Nidra can help to reduce anxiety, depression, and stress. It improves sleep and emotional regulation. It helps to lower cortisol levels. It supports your parasympathetic nervous system activation. Um, Again, this is important because it does not have a cognitive demand, and that is very helpful for some people. Yoga Nidra and PTSD research has continued to support the effectiveness of trauma-sensitive yoga practices for individuals with PTSD. In 2014, a study led by Bessel van der Kolk found that participants with chronic treatment-resistant PTSD who engaged in trauma-sensitive yoga showed significant reduction in symptoms compared to control groups. Notably, many participants who completed this study no longer met the diagnostic criteria for PTSD after the yogic interventions. And note, this was also paired with traditional therapy. It wasn't just on its own. More recent research, including a 2024 review, further supports yoga-based interventions as beneficial for emotional regulation, nervous system stabilization, and symptom reduction. So the key takeaway on the research that I found is that practices like Yoga Nidra are not just relaxation techniques, they're evidence-informed approaches that support a bottom-up healing by working directly with your nervous system. And why it works for trauma. Yoga Nidra has been shown to reduce cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, influence dopamine release, alter cerebral flow, activate our parasympathetic nervous system, and these changes support regulation without requiring trauma exposure. So Yoga Nidra, as I said, might not be appropriate for every individual who's experiencing grief and trauma. It is not recommended for anyone who has severe dissociation or acute psychosis. Um, Obviously, it is important to go through informed consent, permission-based language, and opt to modify or to stop. Why this is relevant, sorry, it's getting late here, to social work practice. Why it matters to us as social workers. So Yoga Nidra aligns with the NASW ethical principles. It is a holistic person in environment framework. It's can be trauma informed. There are many trauma informed care models around Yoga Nidra, and it helps to expand social workers' ability to educate their clients, make informed referrals, and support regulation ethically. Why this matters to Light Movement. Yoga Nidra supports Light's mission by offering accessible regulation tools, reducing barriers to support, complete complementing grief services, supporting volunteers and interns with somatic literacy. So the limitations of the current research. There was very limited grief-specific Yoga Nidra studies. Most of the studies did focus on trauma and PTSD. The groups that I did find information on grief were small sample sizes. There was a lot of reliance on self-reported data, and there was a lot of limited long-term outcomes of the data. So further research is needed, though right now the trauma research is promising. So if anyone wants to become a researcher, I highly suggest researching these modalities in grief. So the key takeaways are grief and trauma are an embodied experience. Yoga Nidra is an ancient practice that has been adapted for modern support. Research is supporting its role in regulation and reset. Ethical trauma-informed applications are essential, and Yoga Nidra complements. It does not replace therapy, and I think that's really important. So as we close this training, I invite us to remember that nothing within us needs to be fixed. In Yoga Nidra, we practice witnessing, allowing the body, the heart, the nervous system to unfold in their own time. As Rumi has reminded us, the wound is the place where the light enters. And may we trust that even grief carries intelligence. May we continue to hold space for ourselves and others with steadiness, compassion, and deep respect for the sacred process of integration.